Hello. Welcome, everyone. All right, look into this nice little icebreaker that we have. What's the strangest place you've learned something useful? An argument. Nice. Sometimes I don't always feel like that there's a great learning out of that, but I'm glad that happens. Listening to music, a dream, waiting in line, public transportation. Oof. I would say mine for sure is in the shower. That happens a lot. And Dwayne, do you have a preference here of where you have the strangest place? Oh, strangest place. That's my most common is the shower, but where's the strangest?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, yes.
Hey, okay, this might be slightly inappropriate, but I think the strangest place is, let's just start that way. The strangest place is probably at a urinal. But I love this
Yep.
question. Yeah, it's, it happens. The hotel that I stayed at, often in Zurich, often posts things above. I think I learned about art gallery openings and the menu special of the day, but I love the idea of being able to learn things in really unusual places and pop us out of our script of where learning can take place.
Yes, fantastic. That's an excellent answer. And realizing now that yes, there is a lot of material sometimes you can find in the bathroom. Great. I'm going to kick us off. So this is Mentimeter's Learning and Development Open Forum. Just a little friendly reminder of what we're here to do is to listen to you, those that you're participating. We have this beautiful panel here of people that I dearly admire and that I think we can learn a lot from. So please remember that there's a Q&A section where you can add in and we gladly want your input throughout this process. So I'm going to kick it off. So Dwayne, since you were the one to start with urinals, let's introduce yourself.
Oh man. Hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me. It's really nice to be here with everyone. My name is Dwayne. For those of you I don't know, my career has spanned the past 15 years at the intersection of brand and learning and program management. Most recently, I was serving as the head of global learning and development at On, which I left at the beginning of the year. And these days, I'm leading my own boutique agency in Berlin and a strategic learning and development advisor for Manageable, which is a great leadership development startup in the UK.
Nice. Thank you. Saga, please
Hello.
introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I'm heading up L&D at PwC here in Sweden, and I usually say I live and breathe learning and development, and I'm a development junkie of all kinds. I've been consulting, advising, worked with edtech on the edtech side, on management side. So I've done a bit of all of it, and now I combine all of it in this role. So
Nice. Amazing. Thank you. And Laurie.
Yes, hi everyone. Laurie Hoffman, based in Toronto, Canada. And basically, I've been an L&D junkie for around 25 years, everything from starting as an instructional designer up to large-scale edtech implementations. And basically what I do now, I have a company called 8 Levers, based on my book, 8 Levers of EdTech Transformation, shameless plug. And and what I do is I work with learning leaders on their edtech ecosystems and transformations.
Awesome. I'm super excited for this collection of knowledge. And I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Lisa. I'm the culture and learning lead at Mentimeter. And I could not forget the baby brownie. She's right here. I think she's done a lot of learning right now. So she's doing her space learning where she's taking a little bit of break. But she's here to chime in. She's got some strong opinions. As I said earlier, their Q&A will be open throughout. So if you pop anything into the chat functionality, we'll just ask you to move it over to this Q&A so that we can properly upvote it and make sure your questions are captured in the right place. And nice. So as you registered, we asked for your opinions on what you would like to hear and which of these themes you would like to most explore. And this is what you have told us that is important to you. And so knowing that these are important topics, we actually would like you to rank them on what we should discuss today. And while you're doing that, Saga, is there something here that feels really interesting to you? Or like, what's your guess that you think might come up on top?
We're getting the results. I guess learning remotely and still feel connected is, of course, always top of mind to create that like relational closeness while being geographically apart. So that would be my best guess. But of course, AI is always in scope where we're living right now. So that could also go up.
Okay, Laurie, if you're not really looking at the screen, what do you think would have landed on top for you?
Oh, I'm curious to see. I think we can see the predictions out there, but I'm curious to see where psychological safety lands, because I was actually on a conversation yesterday where they were asking an interesting question as to whether you would prefer an AI therapist or a live one, and people seem to land on the virtual, like the AI version of it. And the conversation really steered towards, because I feel like there's no expectations. I can be free, or I can be myself. So I am really curious about that. I do also have to acknowledge that there are a ton of Torontonians taking over the chat. And, I don't know how that happened. Nor whether I'm the only Canadian. So shout out to all my Torontonians and Waterloo and all the people coming in from Ontario. It happens, eh?
Nice.
Dwayne, if you were looking at the screen and getting primed, what would you say?
I will take building a true learning culture for 900, Lisa. Yes, that's what I would take.
Well, it seems like it's gonna happen. Cool. Did we want to give this a little bit more time, or yeah, just a little bit longer? No, but super interesting on the topic of like AI therapy. I know at Google, that was one like observation that they had, is when it came to using coaches, they had a large preference for the AI coach versus an in-person coach. And it was because they could really be like, it felt like it was like a non-judgmental sort of space, which is really interesting because that's what therapy is supposed to be. But it's this like feeling of like I could really say anything without any sort of like social like intention of what I'm saying, which I thought was like really profound on like what is like human behavior and like what's holding you back.
Yeah.
There's a really sorry, Saga. Go ahead.
No, you go, Laurie. It's fine.
There's a really interesting piece of research by Mark Zhao Saunders. I'll put his name in here. And it was what is the most common use of ChatGPT, and they found it was therapy. That was the top use. So I'll put that in. I'll put his name in the in the chat if anyone's interested.
Yeah, because I was also going to reference, because we did a man called Jonas Dahl did a study in Sweden where Amy Edmondson was supponing, which was called the dynamics of failure sharing, which was like researching like the correspondence between failures and the dynamics in that. And like in conclusion from that study, they could see like if a mistake was connected to shame or guilt, you wouldn't share it, more or less. And I think that also really corresponds to the whole therapy aspect. Like with this deeper feelings, it's probably more difficult to share, and then you feel less judged, maybe, if it's not the human being. So I think it's really interesting.
Yes, it's so deep. I just love this session because I feel like I learned so much already. Okay, let's go on to the next part, looking at, so now that we have ranked our topics, we would like you to vote if you want 3 topics or 2. What feels like a nice coverage? Knowing that 2 allows us for a little bit more depth, and 3 allows us maybe a little bit more breadth. Let's see what we get here. Oh, okay, this is split in the center. Lovely. Cool. Almost like completely dead in the center.
We have a suggestion from Elisa, 2.5. Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah. Oh, okay. So let's lean into 2, and if we feel like we have a little bit of time, let's pick up the 3rd. All right. So the first topic is building a true learning culture. And the first question we asked to you, audience, is why do we want a learning culture? But Dwayne, this is a
Yo.
that I know speaks a lot to you. And I think when we were speaking earlier, there was a little bit of a fun, spicy take on an L&D team's part in this. But tell me what you think.
Yeah, listen, I think why do we want a learning culture? I think we inevitably have a learning culture, whether or not we want it. It's whether we want to be really strategic with our learning culture and really help define it. And I think that like organizational learning culture, if we don't explicitly explain what good learning looks like or what our unique take is, then it leaves this gap for anyone to come forward and really kind of fill that void. So the reason why we want it is because learning culture, or the spirit of learning in an organization, is far stronger in creating a halo effect than any one person, any one initiative, one team. And so if we can get folks excited about learning, feeling comfortable about sharing what they're learning, sharing failures, celebrating growth, enroll in workshops, in self-paced learning, then we'll have a massive momentum beyond us, beyond our one little one-off initiatives and programming.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would say the same as you, Dwayne. We, like, in one sense, we always have a learning culture, no matter if we want it or not. And then it's more what is it based upon, and what is driving the learning culture. And then, as you said, what do we want to be the driver behind it, and how it will support us as a company or as an organization, both from a behavioral or achieving goals, or just the fact of getting ahead of the game. Because we know integrating learning in the flow is just something else. It gives you a different speed. So fully agree.
I agree, of course, with all of the things there. I do, though, get a little bit of a challenge sometimes, or I give this to C-suite when I talk to them, when they're like, I want a learning culture. And the two questions I ask of them are you okay with failure? Are you okay to see some slippage in your KPIs? As people, especially with new tools and technology, you have to accept that if you want a learning culture. The second one is time. Are you going to give the time? Because that is critical. People, you cannot compress how long it's going to take somebody to learn something. And if you want to build that learning culture, it does take that room to breathe. I can't make it happen in 30 seconds. as much as we talk about those things, it can contribute to it. But and that's when it starts getting serious. And if I'm really cheeky, I also said, and how are you going to be demonstrating learning? What are you going to be doing? Is a big one. I know we're going to talk about AI, but are you using AI, or are you just telling your people that you want to see efficiencies from the tool that you turned on for them? And then it gets a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Someone wrote in the comment, I think it disappeared now, but it's something about like you need to identify the teachable moments. I think that was a beautiful way to put it, because I think it's most learning occurs at the job, and people need to identify teachable moments. And I think that's it's a very spot on comment in connection to culture. So just wanted to pop that one out.
Nice. I mean, I totally agree that it's dependent also like the structures that are built into your organization. But I think the next question we have is actually super interesting. Who is responsible for creating a learning culture? Is that the employees? Is that the learning and development team? Is that management? But Laurie, when we were speaking, like something that was super interesting was like how much responsibility that we feel like the learning and development team takes, and whether or not they should be taking that responsibility. Can you extrapolate on that a little bit?
Yeah, this is the thing. I think a lot of things just get put into the learning and development bucket because they think, well, I put it there, therefore it will happen. And it's like, no, and just because someone takes a course, it does not mean the behavioral change. It has to be, it's cross-organizational, and you need to have it demonstrated from leadership down and from ground up. So that to me is where a lot of learning programs can almost fall down. It's not like I built one. I'm not going to say the company, but it was a large consulting firm, and they wanted their people to be more creative and to think more laterally about solutioning. We built a beautiful 3-day program, and it was wonderful. Everybody thrilled about it. They got back into the office, and their partners, looked at, who ran the firms, looked at them and said, "You're an accountant. Please stop." So, and now, of course, there's a lot of other issues, but you can't just force those things. A lot of these times too with learning, it's a cultural change. It's a complete environmental change. It may be changing the way that we work and operate. And that has to be beyond just learning. We contribute to it, but it has to be fully integrated.
I think I would say that L&D is really ideally we're the experts at shaping the approach to it. I'm a big proponent of creating a learning philosophy for an organization, which really outlines what our teams believe good learning looks like here, how people uniquely grow and develop here, and putting forth that framework. I think we can teach sort of the learning principles behind learning and support these systems that Laurie talked about, and find ways to partner with our people teams to integrate learning into our systems. I think everyone's really responsible for creating the learning culture. I think like anything, L&D can be the experts at creating these frameworks. Anything that's mirrored and reinforced by leadership and elevated by leadership is great. And then everyone down to the employees are responsible for, showing up, bubbling up what feedback on learning programs, spending that individual learning budget in ways that that support their goals, getting candid with their line manager about what they want to learn and where they want to go. So I think L&D can lead in many ways here strategically, but I think everyone is responsible for creating and owning that learning culture.
Yeah, totally agree. Like there's a structural aspect and there's an individual aspect of creating the circumstances for it to happen, but then as an individual pitching in. But I think it's also like an aspect of being mindful of things that stands in a way for creating a learning culture. If we talk incentives or what is holding us back to our full potential, both cultural learning culture wise, I think is equally important, because sometimes it could be about removing hinders that could release the full effects of it as well.
Yes, I think also that something that comes to mind is also just the accessibility to learning experiences, right? So even though we might have really great programming, not everyone has the same accessibility to opportunities. If someone is a caregiver, for example, if they might not have time to wait at the end of the day to take on learning. If someone doesn't have, the extra finances to carry what that learning budget doesn't cover for, that's another big obstacle. So I think we also have to think about equity in our learning culture as well.
Which I think definitely, Dwayne, because that's why we need learning experts. I don't know if you find because everybody's gone to school in some form or taken a course in some form, they're like, well, I know how to do it. And it's like, I have a passion for brain surgery. Nobody's going to allow me to, saw open their head. No matter how many YouTube videos I have watched on this, which is again, and so pointing out, both of you pointing out those really astute points. That's why you need people who know this, who can actually guide it, because otherwise it can go completely wrong.
100%.
What is your reaction to this? That it's management has a pretty strong pull here of because people get to choose out of 100 points, and that it's like 44%. Do you feel like it's a lot about the senior leaders or executives that are setting that culture?
I think they're really role modeling or not role modeling. So I think it really comes, or I would read into that, so how they either do that to a good extent or not. And then, of course, we often have a tendency to put a lot of responsibility there. But of course, I think it's a piece of the cake, but not the full one. But I can see how you would see them role model or not. Definitely.
But do you feel like the piece is this big, that it's like almost 50% of the piece, or?
I wonder if people are speaking to sort of clearing the space and clearing the way for this. At my last company, there was so much about I think Laurie mentioned the time, right? Just the time to take to learning, and just not being completely exhausted to have mental space to take learning. So maybe in that way, management, we're getting some thumbs up love here. If that's maybe what folks are speaking to, then yeah, absolutely. Management is responsible for impacting the systems around supporting a learning culture.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
And some other people are also saying too, just budget, to be able to get, it could be, just that there's something that they need to procure, they need to invest in a course, and the money has to be there.
No, but I really love, Dwayne, that like aspect of like equity. Like, I don't think it's actually thought that way in terms of like what life situation you're in and like financial situation you are, that actually makes you have that capacity to take advantage of those. Okay, so we're on to the next question, which is, what is the most important aspect to sustain a learning culture? And then we have options of follow-ups and reflection, routine trainings, onboarding, leadership behavior, and other. Interesting, with already leadership behavior pulling through.
I think we're surfacing an issue here.
Yeah. I like the left column, the follow-up and reflection, but I'm a fan of like the small everyday habits and how that supports us, and how that it's a mini format of something that has greater effect if it's often repeated. So I really like. I can refer to the left column of like a small reflection on an everyday basis, or after every meeting or something like that. I can really see how that affects and has a big impact.
I'm going to be a weirdo and go into the other column. I think where we're heading and where technology is, for me, other is about personalization and context, and how that fits in, which to me, I think we've gone from generic learning experiences to more bespoke, and we know the bespoke works better. It's not just, and bespoke, I don't mean that it says, hi, Saga, welcome to your course. It's a lot more than that. It knows you, it knows your day, it knows who you're meeting with, and it creates the learning experience around that. Excuse me, I think I think we're moving towards that. Not saying that it ignores all those things. Like, we would still have follow-up reflection and routine to it, but that personalization to me is where I'm leaning more towards. Yeah.
I would agree with both. I would say maybe level setting it in onboarding. I think onboarding is the most important training we offer in general for culture. But the key word I think here is sustaining. And so I think it's follow-ups and reflections from systems. And then I think you're right. I think making it personally relevant to the humans participating. Absolutely.
Totally. Because I've thought about that on like the popularity of LLMs, and like why have they really skyrocketed. And I think it just gives you the ability to really personalize your curiosity, like have something to ask a lot of questions, and kind of like do that learning on a very easy, consistent basis. Because if I think about the way when I don't know something, I just like ask questions, and to just have something to be able to just like almost be there the entire time for you just to consistently ask questions when you're curious is, I think, I don't know, part of my feeling of why it's become so popular, and like why people really still connect with it for so long.
Yeah. I saw a comment here in the chat saying, to sustain learning, I believe employees must be motivated to learn and see how learning and development helps them develop as humans, and that learning supports both career and life goals. Yeah. There's a very human approach to that, as to it's not only about a career fulfillment, it's about a personal fulfillment. And I think that also speaks a bit into what you talked about, Laurie, with the customization. It's maybe not only about my career interest, but about my broader interest, as you said as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to head into the next topic, which is, so this is the beauty of Mentimeter. We let you choose, and then we find where we have it.
Yay.
Great.
Choose your own adventure.
It honestly, right? Like, I don't know if that's like really a thing that's anymore, but I loved those books as a little kid, where it was like, oh, if you want to go in this direction, go to page 41. If you want to go in this direction, 57. I mean, that's always so fun. And then you always felt like you had like 4 books in one. Okay. Anyways, bonuses. All right. So AI making AI useful for learning. So the question is, when looking at the use of AI in learning, how well is it working today? Woof. This is it can be a spicy take on this one, right? What is your experience right now with like AI and L&D? Any of you, open question to any of you in this panel.
Very deep on my side. That's really the space that I play in, which I know doesn't make me popular at parties. I'm an instructional designer. So, sorry. I really believe in the potential. I really believe in what's possible. I think right now we are very much so in the generative space. So we're using it to create courses. We're using it to create video. We're using it to augment the way that we've always done things. I tend to get a lot more excited when I'm working with solutions, because I work more on the tech side and more on the analyst side. I get excited with solutions that are more about how we can work with agentic AI, how we can automate and use memory, which is was a very limiting thing right now in AI, to create those hyper-personalized experiences, and how we can use the data that's generated to actually see what works and what doesn't work. We do have we've applied a lot of our theory into digital, and we don't actually know how well that translates, but we had nothing else to go on. So I get really excited. I call it the virtuous cycle, where, a course actually self-heals, and it looks at what actually works and doesn't work for different individuals. And it actually will change the way the course is designed. So it's a living organic thing, not just personalized, but also too from outcomes. So I want to believe, but I also know too that people will argue with me that the human is really critical. So
yeah,
feel free to debate.
No, I know we discussed that. I think many saw that the one of these first MIT studies of what where they wrote like a discussing article with either search AI or from your own head. And I think it's interesting. It's a small study, so like we need to put it in that context. But I think it's interesting to resonate around where do we want to use AI in this space, where do we not want to use it, and how do we want to make sure that we maintain cognitive expansion if the study then says that we might be held back, or we won't remember what we've written, or it does something to memories and all of it. If we see that that's the thing, I think we still want to go the AI game down, because there's so much potential, as you mentioned, Laurie. I think there's a philosophical aspect of what does it allow us more space to? Does it mean that we have more space for EQ development, or like what is it? Because I think it's an interesting spectrum to be in as to where do we use it, how do we use it, and what does it do to us, and how do we make the most out of that, I would say.
I think there's still a long I'm curious to see where it can take us in terms of cultural learning that can't be sort of sourced from best practices or general content. So for this, I mean, there's topics like onboarding or leadership development, and there's definitely skills that you can sort of crowdsource from these and create customized learning paths and content and so forth. But using AI in contexts like leadership development for context, leadership is really about, leadership at this company, at this moment, under these circumstances, in this greater context, in this greater environment. And so I'm still curious to see how we can leverage AI for these subjects that are really passed more down by legend, and where the more granular understanding is really synthesized through peer-to-peer exchange. And I think there's still some great opportunities there for some blended experiences, and using it in this way as a third voice in the room, a fourth voice in the room to help synthesize ideas like this.
Completely. And this is where, like, I get really excited. I've been working with some technologies. I'm not name dropping, but what they will do is actually plug into both on the back end. They'll plug into your knowledge management, they'll plug into your CRM, and you can also customize a rubric for what you want people to be quote unquote tested on, and they can actually interact in real time with a avatar character that is going to represent some of those leadership traits that you want, or maybe challenge some of those leadership, and then pull in from the knowledge management. Did you know, like this was a scenario at your company, or this was successful or not successful? So the way that you can start to customize is absolutely phenomenal. I see solutions too where it would look at, in your CRM, what customer are you supposed to meet with, and it'll actually create a persona of that customer based on their LinkedIn profile, previous interactions, personality, and help you work with that, as well as pulling in what we know typically works at our company with that industry, or what with their particular background. It just gets mind blowing. Now, whether this all is hype and actually contributes to outcomes, we're still out there. But again, I want to believe. I think there's a lot of possibilities.
There's a comment here saying, I can only say that if you read Laurie's book, all your questions about AI will instantly disappear.
I did not pay Sergio. Thank you. I did not pay, but thank you.
Do we have the URL for Laurie's book in the chat?
Yeah, no.
Exactly. Hey, Laurie, let's keep on promoting. If it's good stuff, it's good stuff.
Yes, agreed. I'm buying it. I'm convinced.
Okay, so I think we've been talking a little bit about potential, but maybe a little bit more focused in. Where do you see the most potential for AI to enhance peer-to-peer learning?
Yeah, I think this is what I was maybe sharing a little bit with, sort of synthesizing ideas. I was at another event with Saga, the Saga team, and we were having these sorts of conversations, and she spoke of a negotiation training or a negotiation firm that used AI as a go between participants to kind of solve for blind spots, or to understand, make sure that they were understanding each other, and as a fourth person in the room where the AI was kind of maybe filling in the gaps for the person that was doing the negotiation between the two parties. And I think this could be really fascinating. So maybe going to a breakout room or whatever, coming back and maybe synthesizing ideas as a team. I think there's going to be some cool ways to use it in blended learning. Still playing with it.
Yeah, I really like that. I don't know if it is how I see it or what I hope for it, but I can really see like something that in the same way that you're into, Dwayne, something that mirrors the discussion that just took place, or something that adds a perspective, or like a third voice. I can really see how that enhances and brings things to a different level.
Yeah.
A really fun thing that I did with that sort of third person was I was having an issue with somebody who would just override and talk. Hopefully I'm not doing that, in discussions. And so I just had my note taker come in, and it tells you the percentage of how much that person talked. And I was like, you were up at 79%. So it was just a basic thing. And I didn't have to really repeat my issues, because he was also getting the feedback from some other people, and he was like, yeah, I took it. But when we could actually give a number and say, this is the amount of time that you're speaking compared to others, that was a huge coachable moment for him to see this. Yeah. It was like, oh, so now you can actually have that. I use Otter, and it will actually tell you the percent, or Fathom, sorry. It actually tells you the percentage of how often people are speaking.
Interesting. But do you think that, yeah, exactly. Like, does that enhance like your ability to like change your behavior, or do you feel like it's just like, do you think it does a lot in terms of like your own learning and things that will change for you?
Good question. I mean, I think of it as if I'm like facilitating or something, I think it's nice to kind of maybe have something check for blind spots, or something I didn't consider, or again, some maybe a cultural consideration I wasn't thinking about, or a nuance or something like that. I do think that there's potential there. I haven't experienced it yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I just caught on the what people have put here, and it's like only 2 people have voted that AI will enhance peer-to-peer learning as more trust. But it isn't necessary. I think that's what is your take on that? Any of you?
I guess it depends on what you put into it. What you mean in more trust, in what sense, I guess. I don't know. There's something about, I guess if you put it in a context where it supports a wider openness between people, if we're on the scenario of 2 people, if it supports like an openness factor that could support a higher trust, if we look in the correspondence between openness and trust and how they feed each other. So in that aspect, it could potentially, yeah.
I think also maybe with the trust is that to create a lot of these experiences, it is using a lot of personalized data. One thing I do get worried about is how much is it tracking about your own personality and who you are? And is that being used for evaluations in ways that you're not aware of? Is it, there was one where I actually saw a software that was presented to me saying, we can identify who in your population is neurodiverse. Oh, hold on. You know, and to them it was, but we can help them. We're now starting to get into, you know, I would not want the conversation I have with my therapist AI to be brought into my work, because that's a big chasm. So I worry that we might reach a point where people actually are not as open with AI, or they learn to hide certain behaviors to basically trick the system or train the system. The data part I think is really significant, and we're bumping up against that, and I think we're going to actually right now we're just under GDPR rules, which for about your data, but yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Definitely. Okay, let's walk into the next question on, can AI be added into informal learning moments? How and why not? And I think we touched upon this a little bit in terms of it adding into your conversations, having some sort of analysis of that conversation, but I don't know. Do you feel like just in the flow of work, when you're sitting next to another colleague and you're learning how to draft a sales email or how to qualify a lead, where you're just sitting side by side, those sort of informal moments where you're just doing, I guess, the work itself, do you feel like AI can be added in those moments, and is it even useful?
I would say so. I think it's also what you would count as a learning moment as well. So, for example, we did with Copilot, we wanted to put together a job ad. So we did the classic. You set in a prompt, and then how that prompt is interpreted, of course, creates an informal learning moment for me and my colleagues saying, okay, I wanted like this, but it didn't turn out. So I learned something about I would say that counts as a learning moment. So in those small interactions of, I would say count as, I would say definitely in those small everyday interactions where you use it, the way it's set up, because it's I need to reflect, what's the question that I'm asking, what's the response that I get, and how can I use it? So I would say it's, in one sense, it's driven on learning loops in a subconscious way, if you see what I mean. So I would say definitely yes.
I think it's also about how people use it, or they allow it to. For example, I realized how lazy I was getting with my grammar when I installed Grammarly, right? Because I was like, oh, I've totally forgotten, when to use an Oxford comma, and all that, because I just got lazy with it. But I made a point of actually looking what it was doing. I also have an AI agent that just answers my emails with human in the loop. I check it. His name's Sven. He answers my emails. But I could just ignore that and just be like, it's auto-corrected. And then there's not any learning with it. So I think there's also a push-pull to say, what are we actually going to allow? What are we just going to say, automate it and fix it for me? Yeah. And then what do I learn?
I totally agree.
It's an
Yeah.
interesting tension. It's a very interesting tension. And is it important that I still remember to use an Oxford comma now? I don't know. And is it or is it not? I don't know, but now I do. So this is where it starts to get interesting.
I think this is where learning philosophy can really help steer the organization. I think you can really leverage clarity around the modalities that you like, what good looks like, according to our brand, give people some space, and then also helps generally course correct when things are off brand. But I think that can also give some really good context as well.
And maybe philosophically, I'd be curious to hear other thoughts. A lot of this, like when we talk about informal learning moments and where we fit learning in and feedback, is based on some sort of definition of what is right. And is that actually right? And what are we coaching people to? Now, this could also be true, without AI. But is that actually, like, now that we have the ability to do this on a hyper scale and the velocity is so fast, what are we actually teaching people, and what are people actually internalizing and learning? Sorry to bring it to a whole philosophical
I think it's
way.
I think it's great. I think it's and how much agency can we give adults that need agency, right? I think that's definitely why versus like a right or wrong. It's really like guardrails. Here's a general approach. Make decisions within it. We can always get feedback, and it doesn't have to necessarily be so explicit. In general.
Did any comments pop out to you?
Definitely. Well, there's an interesting one from Alicia that AI reminds me of a microwave, faster, but sometimes the flavor just isn't the same.
100%.
And some great ones coming up also too in Menti. There's some brilliant ones.
We will now open to Q&A. So those of you who haven't put a question in, please do so, and also take a look on what questions you would like to see answered by using the upvote functionality in Mentimeter. What topic do you think is going to get the most questions here?
Something spicy.
Yeah, let's bring up the spice. We should add that as like a feature to add an extra chili emoji to be like, okay, I want this upvoted, but I also think it's very spicy. That's really nice. Okay, cool. So the first question, it was in regards to learning culture, or who is responsible. What comes first, developing organizational culture or learning culture? And if you were starting from the ground up like me,
I would say they go so much hand in hand. I think it's difficult to separate them because it's behaviors in both of them. So I would see them as one and see how the organizational culture supports the learning one and vice versa. So I would combine them.
Yeah, it's very chicken and egg. I think the learning culture is an extension of the organizational culture. That's the way I view it, because ideally it's paying into the same strategic goals, right? So we have the brand values and then the vision and then the strategic goals. And then this is really how learning mirrors that and can support the strategic goals, the brand culture, and the human relevance for the team.
Lovely. Great. Next question. What are some effective ways to get leadership more actively involved in building a learning culture? Okay, this is a great question. I mean, they're all great questions, just so you know.
Love it.
Yeah. I love reverse mentoring, particularly in this age of things moving so quickly. When people say, well, how do I know what to do with technology? I'm like, hire a teenager for an afternoon. You will be astounded. But the learning culture for me is a big one, is that reverse mentoring for people who are sitting at C-suite who aren't necessarily aware of what's happening or what they want to happen, but not aware of the realities. Flipping the switch on that is a really big, and it's a really big way for them to then inform their leadership and policy. It's also a really good way for the person who's doing the mentoring to also get a picture as to what's happening on the C-suite. But this is, to me, is a big one that I often try and do.
And I would add as well, connecting the learning culture to the business goals, making clear how the learning culture is supporting the way we're going, making that connection clear, because I think that often does a good job of connecting those.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would add as well is like if you have a program or something that a course or something that you're actually like launching, not that that's all that L&D does, but that they actually participate in it. That isn't like, oh, this is for everyone else, and then good for you. I think for me that what has been like shown as like really good champions is like, oh, I also, even though I have a very big schedule, I believe this is super important, and I'm also going to participate in these things that we believe in, that we're putting as learning.
I love that you shared that. I'm creating a training right now for some different levels of leadership. And when I presented it to them, I made a strong request for the senior leaders to be a part of it, because it was an initiative bigger than my training that's designed to level up a team. And that's such a beautiful example of like mentorship. And just like as senior leaders coming back in even revisiting basic concepts that we may have learned a long time ago, but refreshing, relearning, unlearning, and then demonstrating that that's important at any point in your career. Even revisiting the basics is such a strong statement.
Exactly. Okay, how to succeed involving people outside of HR or L&D to lead and support peer learning.
I think this is part of the learning culture, actually. And I think a good way to start is by slowly starting to level set, if it's not there, that everyone's a trainer. This is something I think we have to, as L&D, we really have to beat this drum. Like, none of us are recruiters, but we still are involved in interviewing for other people's teams, asking behavioral interview questions, getting great people to join the team. We all have different responsibilities to pay into the culture, and everyone is a trainer within an organization. So I think that just kind of resetting the responsibility around it.
Definitely. And like the classic, what's in it for them? I think we can easily connect it to something that matters for them.
Yeah, and I think one thing as well is like I feel like people feel like they have to do so much in order to be a part of peer learning. Oh, I have to create this course in order to do it, or I have to develop a workshop in order for that to be considered learning. I think it's like letting know like the barriers of entry are not that high. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it, and that like just starting is okay, and it's not that everything has to be super well developed and formatted in a way that maybe you expect. I think that's sometimes I get that from people that are like, they think this is really high barriers of entry to do it.
I love Claire makes a great point here in the chat here. Bringing in the mindset starts with recruitment, 100%. Yeah, bringing this in from the beginning is a great way to integrate it into an organization.
Ooh, this is an interesting question. What is the main reason, and I don't know if there is just one, but for learning culture to fail?
Which learning culture?
Oh wow!
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot here.
I don't know. Have any of you had anything that within like something that you wanted to instill in a learning culture that just kind of like fell flat, or just sort of didn't go the way that you expected?
100%. Yeah, Laurie, you want to go? Go
No,
for it.
well, yeah. I mean, I mentioned the one before, about creativity, and they're like, this isn't, we're accountants. It's there's so many reasons. It's a misalignment. I think the big one is expecting learning to change culture. It informs it, it shapes it, and it's a part of it. And I think that was the question before, like, do you have organizational culture and learning culture, and how those two intersect? I think the other one, for the main reason for learning culture to fail is, and we didn't talk to the specific topic, but psychological safety is, for me, probably the one that they would all roll up into. If you have, sometimes people say, well, we have a high performing culture. And I'm like, is that a euphemism for fear? That nobody can fail. And if we fail, it is the worst thing ever. And people do not learn when they are stressed. I don't know a lot of neuroscience, but that is, we know that when people are highly, highly stressed, the information just does not go in. And so that psychological safety, the lack of that to me is a big one.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as you, Laurie. Like the whole aspect of whether, like from the neuroscience aspect, I would say you fail if people are pushed into the threat system rather than the reward system, where, as you say, like the creativity, the curiosity, the forward leaning happens. So yeah, fully agree with you, Laurie, on that one.
I think I would add, I'm not sure a lot of folks are used to L&D teams being leveraged as strategic business partners. And I think that's sometimes our own fault. I think sometimes we're viewed as just content creators and workshop facilitators. And I think it's up to us to really help change that view of how we can partner with businesses and what we can grow within the organization. And I've had some definite failure around this as well. And I think what's really helped is actually secure some good wins as a strategic partner with something that was a big initiative for the company, and then showing, this is why you wanted that framework. I know I can see this is the impact that it was able to make. And then your ideas about learning culture and everything in general can just be, I think, a little bit more appreciated, and you can be seen a bit more strategically around that.
Love that. Okay, we're going to head into one last little segment here that we're trying out. It's called Pass the Question. And this question goes to you as the panel, and what we're hoping is for you to answer, and then you will ask a new question for the next panel. So also keep it back in mind, like what would you want to ask the next panel? But your question is, if your LMS vanished tomorrow, how would you keep learning alive? This is a loaded question in so many ways, but so what is your answer with these?
Well, first of all, there was an interesting study done at Airbnb, and if you ask Barry Murphy about it, he turned off his LMS and didn't tell anyone for 2 weeks, and he didn't get one email.
Yeah.
So the answer to that is keep doing what you're doing. I don't think the LMS is the only hub of where learning is. And in fact, I'm much more a fan of the headless LMS, whereas I'm looking at how do I push learning out to where people are. And essentially the LMS is just a piece of middleware that nobody logs into. What I'm looking forward to, and it'll happen at some point, is we see Google LM or Learn LM by Google, where they've actually created a specific GPT that is trained to teach people based on learning pedagogy and andragogy, and I'm just waiting for somebody to slap that onto Copilot, and then it's like, why? What happens then, right? Like that's just where everything will happen. So that's what I see.
Yeah, I'm on the same. One part of me would take the opportunity to get a learning experience platform in instead of an LM. And another part of me, similar to Laurie, would keep it alive, like being in the company I'm in, which I would say is a knowledge company. There's so much happening in an everyday work life, which is like that integrated learning. I would just make sure that that's encouraged and pushed for, as to like, I went into a customer meeting, I asked a new question, what did I learn? What's the response? What happened? Like all of these small interactions, which is triggered by asking a new question or by sharing something I learned in a recent moment. So I would probably put efforts into encouraging that even more and making sure that gets a bigger scene.
Nice.
I would order Laurie's book. And then I would create an AI bot to love code a new LMS, one that's per Laurie's recommendations, or something that's a little bit more, I'm going to stay with maybe a beautiful UI and UX experience as well, something that can really piece the learning opportunities together in the back end.
Awesome. Do any of you have a question you want the next panel to answer?
On any topic.
Well, I'm learning specifically, but like any topic.
Okay.
If you could pick a song to describe the state of L&D right now, what would it be?
Oh, good one.
That's a really good one. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So one question for the audience and also the panel as well. You can answer this. Who would you like to see on the panel next time? Like, what are some fun, spicy takes? People who have a great opinion, just like yourselves. Who would you like to see on the panel next time?
On the spot.
I know, right? I was like, these are hard. Like, who are you crushing? And actually, I think I can expand it that it doesn't have to be someone specifically in L&D, but it has a contribution to the L&D world.
I would say Bianca Bauman. She just put out a recent book with ATD that's on using marketing AI campaign functionality into L&D and what that would be. She's absolutely brilliant. And my all-time favorite always is Julie Dirksen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's just an amazingly lovely human being. And I absolutely adore her. I absolutely adore her.
I would second Julie. I'm
Yeah.
rereading Design How People Learn right now, and I think it's just gold. Cami Bean, basic instructional design. I think maybe I'm not sure if instructional design is really dying. Yeah, I would say Julie as well. That'd be great.
I'll add Jonas Dahl from the Swedish School of Economics with his study, The Dynamics of Failure Sharing, because I think it's interesting. And since I was at the Swedish Learning Awards yesterday, I got really curious about the transformation journey Swedbank has done within the learning space as well. So I would invite someone from there.
Awesome.
And again, I'm not paying these people who are saying we're Torontonian leaders.
We don't believe you, Laurie.
No, not to that. But somebody did actually put on there Gina Genereux. She was the chief learning officer of Banque de Montréal, BMO Bank, one of our largest banks. She hired me as an instructional designer, baby one, in the year 2000. She is phenomenal too. She also has a course on LinkedIn Learning about pre-skilling. She's great to follow just on LinkedIn for some of her insights. Really, really good. And Clippy, I think, would be great. I don't know where Clippy is now. He's probably sitting somewhere on a beach, I hope, in a hammock with a nice tropical drink and a breeze.
Living life. But I mean, this is like a for sure screenshot moment. I'm like taking this to be like, okay, follow.
Yeah.
Like, this is gold. Well, thank you. This was like a really lovely hour. That's a wrap on our open forum. Of course, being at Mentimeter, we love a little bit of feedback, especially if we can get it in the moment on was the content insightful, useful for you? Do you like the interactive format? And I can't read the last question, Agnes. Would you be interested in joining something like this again? All right, look at that. Like laying on the fours, that's pretty good. So, I mean, that's mostly due to this beautiful panel that has really brought so much knowledge and experience. And I'm truly grateful for your time. All of you who have joined, and especially you in the panel. Thank you so much for making this great.
Thanks for joining and thanks for the invite.
Thank you for having me. And
looking forward to seeing those of you again in November for our next Learning Development Open Forum.
So good.
Lovely. Thank you.